Although I have a very trusty Vacom tablet for drawing on the desktop, I have been kind of spoiled by the iPad Air and Apple Pencil, and this is at the point where I really want to use a pen display on applications like desktop Photoshop because of just how much it offers. And when I learned about what Sidecar was, I decided to try it out, and I was actually really surprised by the results. So first of all, it's completely wireless to your MacBook if you use Sidecar, and Sidecar is basically where you use your iPad Air screen as a second monitor for your MacBook. It can be really laggy sometimes with just how it works, but generally it's actually really responsive, and as long as you don't mind those little hiccups, it's actually surprisingly good second monitor just for normal workflow. And that sort of made me wonder whether it would actually be a good idea to use the Apple Pencil and the iPad and Sidecar as a pen display. So basically, if you don't know what a pen display is, it's basically just a Vacom drawing tablet, but instead of the drawing surface, there is a display on it, kind of the way, you know, an iPad works for drawing. So I tried it out, and I was actually really surprised because the Apple Pencil did actually work, and a lot of the touch inputs like zooming in with two fingers, it actually did work, although it was very laggy, so I kind of refrained from doing that. But the fact that the pencil worked really well was so surprising. I was expecting it all to be insanely laggy and just not work at all, but the fact that it was actually like smooth enough for me to sketch something was so impressive, because it's all done over like the internet, where basically like there's no cable going from the Mac to the iPad, it's just wireless, and the drawing quality is actually surprisingly good. There were a lot of reviews in the past where that didn't work properly, and I feel like Apple has fixed a lot of the issues with software updates, so nowadays it actually works surprisingly well with the Apple Pencil. I still wouldn't recommend this for actually drawing with on desktop. This is more of just, you know, trying things out, because realistically this is just not a good thing at all. Like, it worked, but it doesn't mean that it worked well, because although it did work to the point where I was impressed doesn't necessarily mean that it's perfect and that you should do it. Realistically, if you do want to draw on desktop, you do need to get an actual pen display instead of using Sidecar. But in the meantime, before, you know, you get yours, or you're waiting for yours, or saving money for yours, you know, it is an alternative that you could use. And if someone held me at gunpoint and told me to use it, I would be perfectly fine with using it. And I feel like that's something that, you know, is really good. And it's kind of like a thing where I don't think anyone really thought about this too much. I know that there were some YouTube videos in the past about it, but those videos were multiple years old, and no one has really cared to test it after. Like, after, you know, Sidecar has become a lot more usable, and after new updates that have basically made it a lot better of a device and software experience to use. So yeah, that's basically what I want to try out, and hopefully this was at least somewhat informative for some people who were considering it. I wouldn't consider it. It works, and you can try it, and you love it if you just like do it like on the side, or you just like drawing every now and then. But like, if you actually want to spend 3 hours drawing it through Sidecar, I would not really recommend it, because there's going to be too many random bugs that will ruin you. But I think generally there is that really big pro of being able to use desktop Photoshop, where like, I feel like a lot of people, if you have a Mac that supports Sidecar, I feel like a lot of people would be willing to take the bugs and annoyance of Sidecar with the Apple Pencil just to access desktop Photoshop, because it's at a point, or even Autodesk, like really any drawing applications, because it's at a point where all the mobile apps are not nearly as good as the actual desktop applications, even when they could be. So realistically, I think it's a really good option for people who don't necessarily want to constantly use it, and it's not going to be their primary way of drawing. But if they just want to use desktop every now and then, and they want a pen display, but they can't spend another $300 to $3,000 for a pen display.